The truth about the filthy hygiene of a Roman emperor is a mystery that has been shrouded in secrecy for centuries. How did the most powerful man in the world live in such squalor? Was it a sign of his power or a sign of his arrogance? What secrets lie beneath the layers of dirt and grime that have been accumulating for centuries? Could it be that the truth about the filthy hygiene of a Roman emperor is more sinister than we ever imagined? Do you want to know about him more closely? Don't worry, in the next few minutes we are going to show you the truth about the filthy hygiene of a Roman emperor. Modern medicine advised emperors to ignore acne. In the first century there were ways to treat acne. Aulus Cornelius Celsus wrote a whole book about health, cleanliness, and how to treat different illnesses and diseases, including skin problems. Celsus said in his book De Medicina, it's almost a waste of time to treat acne, spots, and freckles. Celsus said, however, that if someone did try to get rid of them, they should do the following. The best way to get rid of pimples is to use resin that has been mixed with at least the same amount of split alum and a little honey. A spot can be taken off by pounding equal amounts of galbanum and soda in vinegar until it has the consistency of honey. With this, the part is to be smeared, and after a few hours it is to be washed off, and a small amount of oil is to be put there. All Roman emperors used a sickle to remove sweat. In many ways, Roman bathing were the same for people of all classes. A strigil was a small sickle that was used by both emperors and regular people to wipe away sweat and oil. After working out or taking a bath, Romans put oil all over their bodies. Then they used a strigil to scrape it into a small pitcher called a guttus. The process was done without soap, and then it was rinsed with cold water. Rich people had slaves do it for them, but poor people had to do it themselves. If you used the strigil too much, it could hurt you. Rinsing after a good strigil scrape was supposed to bring back moisture, but it made the skin itch. Also, strigils were very sharp. Suetonius thought that Emperor Augustus's many calluses that looked like ringworm were caused by his body always itching and him using the strigil hard. Emperors and commoners used public baths. In Rome, people from the lower classes liked to go to public baths together. Rich Romans often had their own private baths, but as the empire grew, bathhouses were built in both big and small towns. By the 1st century BC, important Romans were going to public baths. Atia, Augustus's mother, liked going to public baths until 63 AD, when she had a bad time at one. Suetonius said that when a snake crawled on Atia, she immediately cleaned herself, but she couldn't get rid of a mark on her body that looked like a snake. The author wrote that after that, she never went to the public baths again. Hadrian forbade mixed public baths. Roman bathhouses were called thermae, and they had more than one room. Baths were used as gyms, social spaces, steam rooms, and places where men and women could freely interact with each other. There were separate rooms for men and women to use at many public pools, but they were connected. Emperor Hadrian changed this so that men and women could use different baths. Later, Emperor Marcus Aurelius went even further and banned baths for men and women to use together. After his predecessor, Elagabalus put them back in place, Emperor Septimius Severus forbade the maintenance of baths in Rome that were used by both men and women. Emperors expelled small worms from their teeth to stop toothaches. In imperial Rome, barbers or surgeons were usually the ones who helped people with tooth pain. When a Roman had a toothache in the 1st century, Celsus told them to stop drinking wine and eating hard foods. Besides that, he suggested a sponge soaked in hot water should be used to apply steam, and an ointment made from cypress or iris oil should be put on top. The head should then be wrapped in wool. No matter what is put on the teeth directly, the ointment mentioned above should also be put on the jaws and covered with wool. When Emperor Claudius had a toothache, his doctor supposedly fixed it by burning hyoscyamus seeds and pouring hot water into his mouth. This is how small worms get out, the doctor wrote. At the time, people thought that toothaches and cavities were caused by worms eating away at the teeth. Private toilets for emperors. Like taking a bath, going to the toilet in Roman times was a public activity that didn't give you any privacy. The seats in public toilets were all lined up next to each other, and there were holes in the seats that led to sewer systems. When they could, wealthy Romans had their own toilets built. Hadrian, the emperor, had several private toilets made out of marble with seats and footrests put in at his villa near Tivoli. Many of the one-seat toilets were grouped together near the dining halls and were made for people from different social classes. Archaeological evidence shows that some of these toilets had bubbling fountains that Romans used to rinse the sponges they used to clean themselves. There are also signs of foundations and structures that look like sinks, which would have been where the sponges were kept. Hadrian and the other nobles may not have known it at the time, but private baths and toilets were healthier than the Roman public bathhouses, which were full of parasites and diseases. Urine was valued by emperors because Romans used it to wash clothes. The Romans didn't have soap like we do, but they found other ways to clean their clothes. Urine was one of the most useful things for a laundry service. Romans cleaned their clothes with urine, which was high in ammonia and came from both people and animals. Traders would get this item from public restrooms. Emperor Vespasian came up with the idea of taxing urine to raise money to pay the Roman army. Titus, who was Vespasian's son, didn't like the tax. According to Suetonius, this led to the following exchange. When Titus criticized Vespasian for coming up with a tax on public services, he held a piece of the first payment up to his son's nose and asked if it smelled bad. He said, "Yet it comes from urine," when Titus said no. The chief deputy of Augustus Thermae. Thermae was the name for Rome's bigger public bathhouses. These were often ordered by emperors and were places where people could meet. Thermae had changing rooms with holes in the walls where people could put their things. There was also a tepidarium with a warm water pool, a caldarium with a hot water pool, and a frigidarium with a cold water pool. Some thermals even had gyms, dry saunas, and swimming pools outside. In 25 BC, Augustus asked his top deputy, Agrippa, to design the first Thermae, which replaced smaller bathhouses that came before it. After that, Roman emperors started building public bathhouses that were bigger and fancier. Emperor Hadrian first reserved private baths for the ill. Doctors in the 1st century CE, like Aulus Cornelius Celsus, said that people with diseases like dysentery, typhus, malaria, tuberculosis, paralysis, cholera, gonorrhea, rabies, and so on should take a bath to clean themselves. The problem with this is that most people, even sick ones, went to public bathhouses. Emperor Hadrian was one who came up with the idea to only let sick people into the bathhouses at certain times. This kept dangerous germs from spreading. Imperial table manners meant using fancy napkins and manipulating the government. Even though they didn't have a formal court, Roman emperors often ate with family, friends, and nobles. How people acted and what they ate at dinner depended on who was in charge. Suetonius said that Augustus was a light eater who ate simple food most of the time. Suetonius showed Claudius in a very different way. He always wanted to eat and drink, and he rarely left the dining room until he was full and wet. He fell asleep right away, lying on his back with his mouth open, while a feather was put down his throat to help his stomach. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Feel free to let us know what you think about the video. And if you liked it, then please leave us a like and make sure you subscribe to our channel for more fantastic content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.